Member for Blaine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today as the Assistant Minister for DCDD just to get some comments on the record about this bill. Madam Speaker, the Fines Recovery Unit was established in 2002, within the year after the then Claire Martin Labor government took power after the CLP had been in government for many, many years. The FRU is currently a registry of the local court under the Act. Fines are monetary penalties issued by a court. Penalties are monetary penalties issued through an infringement notice. For example, a speeding fine or a parking fine. The majority of infringements are issued by the NT Police, but also by local councils and various government agencies. The FRU receives payments from those who pay their court fines and infringement penalties by the due date and takes enforcement action against those who do not pay by the due date. This is in line with community expectations. We all want to be safe on the roads. We all expect that there will be speed limits and various road rules and penalties for those who do not comply with those. And if there's a penalty, there must be an enforcement mechanism. This is a long-standing principle in our jurisdiction. The most common enforcement sanction processed by the FRU is a driver's licence suspension, followed by a cessation of business with the MVR, meaning that someone is unable to drive for a period of time if they've failed to do the right thing on the road, been caught, been issued an infringement, and then failed to pay the infringement. The FRU also offers community work orders to people who have no capacity to pay but can work off their debt by community work. And I think we can all agree that we do need more community work around town. There's always lots of rubbish to do, lots of weeds to whack, lots of land to clean up. I could definitely do with a lot more community work. And Minister for Corrections, I'll be sending you some letters for some of your wonderful workers. I saw some, I think today on the way to this house, there were some of your low security inmates working busily on open security, thank you, on Sibbald in Woodruff, and I do appreciate that, thank you. In June 24, process issues with the enforcement of fines and penalties by the FRU were identified and determined to be non-compliant with the provisions of the Act. This has been identified to go back to the original 2002 issuing of the Act. Just another thing that this government is here to fix and clean up. But let it be clear that nothing about any of the process issues affects the validity of the underlying fines or penalties. Those fines and penalties remain payable. That is the community expectation, and that is what we will deliver. The issue only affects people who had an outstanding fine or penalty which required enforcement action. Anyone who paid their fines on time is unaffected. That is why we're here to bring these amendments to the House to fix up this problem which we inherited. The proposed amendments were separated into two bills. The first part was introduced in the second week of the October sittings. This is the validation bill, to signal our intent to validate previous enforcement actions. The second part of the amendments introduced in these sittings will join the first bill and be debated together. Taken together, these will validate any past enforcement action taken by the FRU and will ensure that enforcements going forwards will be beyond reproach. The new process will reduce complexity by instead providing a similar set of criteria for the FRU to use to determine when an unpaid infringement can be enforced at the earliest available time. This will reduce administrative work and enable quicker and more consistent enforcement of unpaid infringement notices. These amendments do not diminish a person's ability to challenge the underlying infringement notice. I haven't got any tickets for a long time, but I do remember when I was a young hothead, teenager, and I had a bit of a lead foot, you'd get a ticket, and And on the back of it, there was a little form you could fill out, and you could take that to court and try your luck with a judge and hope that you didn't come away worse off. That process still exists and is still available to people who receive an infringement notice. But the second bill supports and makes clear our ability to use computer programs and computer systems to streamline this process. And as a former software developer, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, probably the only former software developer in the history of this House, and I don't know if there's any others in Australia, but hopefully there are, the more that we can automate business processes, the better. I commend the bill to the House.
Minister.